Hey, good morning. It's Saturday, May 17th. I'm Ali Velshi. This week, Donald Trump returned to the Middle East, looking less like the leader of a democracy and more like a visiting fellow monarch. He was greeted with all the pomp and pageantry the Gulf monarchies could muster, complete with red carpets, Arabian horses, swordsmen, and yes, a full parade of camels. Very fancy camels, more than a dozen of them. The 5-day tour, Trump's first state visit overseas since returning to office, included stops in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and surprisingly, he met with Syria's interim president. The first time an American president has done that in a generation. Just as telling is where he went, though. Normally, a U.S. president's first trip abroad is always to its closest neighbors and trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Biden broke ranks by choosing the United Kingdom, but both of Trump's first trips have been to the Middle East, notably not to Israel, where tensions between Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seem to be brewing over his handling of Iran and the Palestinians. Accompanying Trump's trade caravan was a who's who of billionaire CEOs, including Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Alex Karp, Larry Fink. They were all seated at the same table as American officials and Gulf royals, blurring the lines between public power and private profit. And the trip paid off. Jointly, they walked away with more than $300 billion in commercial deals. Headlines all week touted flashy investments and deals worth hundreds of billions of dollars, but don't be fooled. The real story is not the size of the deals, it's who benefits and who doesn't. The winners were not generally American workers or small businesses. The winners were the shareholders of big tech, fossil fuel companies, weapons manufacturers, and above all, the Trump brand. Describing his relationship with Saudi Arabia back in 2015, Trump said, quote, "Saudi Arabia, they buy apartments from me. They spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much." End quote. Under the second Trump term, the Saudis are pouring even more money into the Trump organization. This week's opulent affair had little to do with diplomacy. It was essentially a corporate retreat for the American oligarchy sponsored by Gulf royals, none of whom are too bothered by America's democratic backslide. Let's break down some of those deals, starting with the Trump empire. In the weeks leading up to the visit, two of Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr., had already been traveling through the region, lining up lucrative new deals for the family business. Among the agreements they secured, two new real estate projects in Riyadh, including a Trump Tower, a $530 million luxury skyscraper in Jeddah, expected to net the Trump family tens of millions of dollars in licensing fees, plans for a Trump-branded golf resort in Qatar, backed by that country's sovereign wealth fund, a billion-dollar hotel in Dubai, and just half an hour up the road from Dubai, over in Abu Dhabi, Eric Trump brokered some crypto deals. Real estate, crypto, golf courses, all wrapped in Gulf money, personal deals that have been disguised in America First rhetoric. In effect, the Trump organization operated this week like a shadow State Department. And once again, Trump is using his public office to feed his personal revenue stream. It's no wonder he skipped traditional allies like Canada and Mexico for his first trip. There were no Trump-branded deals to be made there. The much-lauded Trump Hotel in downtown Toronto lasted less than 5 years and at its peak never reached half capacity. It's now the St. Regis Hotel. Now, I want to pause here for a moment to be clear. Gulf state influence is a big thing around the world and in America, and it's historically been a bipartisan affair. But it's usually a trade deal for policy gains kind of trade, or at least it has been since about 1980. But after both 9/11 and then again after the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018, the spotlight turned to Gulf money and its corrosive effects. Think tanks, lobbying firms, and even universities were called out for taking funds from these regimes. And while the lobbying didn't completely stop, it did become more stigmatized. And importantly, those foreign interests were still several steps removed from the Oval Office itself. But now Trump's personal fortune has grown by over $3 billion since taking office, much of it thanks to Gulf states. Just 6 months after leaving office after Trump's first term, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, his brand new, no experience private equity firm, Affinity Partners, got a $2 billion investment from the Saudi Public Investment Fund, whose board thought that it was a really bad idea, but the fund is controlled by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who's buddies with Kushner. The New York Times reported that analyses deemed Kushner's firm unsatisfactory in all aspects. Unsatisfactory in all aspects. $2 billion, which is a sign that perhaps this wasn't about business. It was about buying access. Meanwhile, Donald Trump Jr. is scheduled to speak at the Qatar Economic Forum next week. In the program, his talk was initially titled Monetizing MAGA. That's a name that says the quiet part out loud. As The Atlantic took note, the name was at some point edited. It now reads Investing in America. It's downright boring compared to monetizing MAGA. But let's move on to Trump's billionaire backers, who also made out pretty well this week. Elon Musk secured a deal to expand Starlink in Saudi Arabia. Jeff Bezos' Amazon signed a partnership with a Saudi AI firm, Humane, which is an ironic name for a Saudi company. ExxonMobil and two other American energy giants secured a $60 billion deal to expand oil and natural gas production in Abu Dhabi. The UAE pledged to help finance a new aluminum smelting plant in Oklahoma. Smelting plants, by the way, are among the most fossil fuel reliant operations on Earth. Defense contractors locked in $142 billion in new arms deals with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the single biggest buyer of American weaponry. And Boeing secured a $96 billion contract with Qatar for the largest ever order of wide-body passenger jets, more than 200 of them from Qatar Airways. The Trump administration also touted new health care investments, but again, let's look at the fine print. He signed a deal with one Saudi pharmaceutical company, Shamek IV Solutions, which pledged $5.8 billion to boost IV fluid production and AI-driven drug research, according to their website. Instead of directing the capital into U.S. universities, the longtime engines of American scientific and medical innovation, Trump is opening these critical markets to foreign investment, all while slashing FDA oversight and gutting federal research funding to universities in America. It's not about improving our healthcare system. If this were about putting Americans first, he'd start with you and me, not the investment portfolios of Saudi big pharma. Not by slashing Medicaid in America to fund tax breaks for the wealthy. Here's an idea: universal health care, something every major Western developed nation other than America has, which could save us billions of dollars a year. In 2022, the U.S. spent more on health care than 6 universal health care countries combined, and we still had worse health outcomes, according to a government report. Our system isn't broken because it's underfunded. It's broken because it prioritizes profit over people. Trump's latest trip and this latest deal only entrenches that broken status quo. Okay, back to the trip. Another big winner, the D.C.-based Enfield Investment Partners. It secured a $4 billion deal with a Saudi sports firm. But this just isn't business, it's PR. The Saudis are desperate to clean up their image. And this deal is part of a broader sports washing strategy that Saudi's been undertaking for the last few years, using glitzy events like the 2034 FIFA World Cup to distract from the kingdom's human rights abuses. Which brings us to an especially troubling deal: Trump's AI agreements with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. NVIDIA, the massive chip maker, will sell 18,000 AI chips to the Saudi AI firm Humane, which, other than having the ironic name, is chaired by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. The UAE also has a tentative deal to import 500,000 of NVIDIA's most advanced chips annually starting this year. These chips will power the region's growing data centers and AI infrastructure, but national security experts are sounding alarms. Trump is offshoring cutting-edge technology and all the infrastructure that comes with it to Gulf autocrats who are also aligned with Beijing, all while claiming to fight for American jobs and security. Bloomberg reports that even some Trump officials want to delay the deal, saying too many details remain unresolved. Speaking to Time magazine, analyst Sam Winter-Levy of the Carnegie Endowment warned, quote, "You could end up in a position where some large proportion of U.S. computing power has been offshored to a bunch of states that can wield leverage over U.S. foreign policy," end quote. Given Trump's deep financial ties in the region, Americans have to ask, are these deals about America? Or are they about Donald Trump? Trump in fairness, and his billionaire circle walked away with billions in deals, what did the American people gain? Beyond the lofty rhetoric, the details for regular citizens were scarce. And while Trump schmoozes with Gulf billionaires, his sweeping tariffs are driving up costs for American consumers, for small businesses, and for U.S. manufacturers. Meanwhile, constitutional safeguards designed to prevent this kind of foreign self-dealing, things like the emoluments clause, are being brazenly ignored. That clause exists to stop presidents from receiving gifts or payments from foreign governments without congressional approval. It ensures that presidents negotiate in the public interest, not in their own. But when the president is also someone's business partner, every decision becomes a political potential conflict of interest. National security experts and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle warn that Trump is opening the door to intelligence risks, to diplomatic manipulation, and to even outright bribery. And these aren't just any foreign countries. These are autocratic states with deep pockets, little transparency, and every reason to keep Donald Trump very close. This week, Trump and his entourage sent a clear message to the world. The price of friendship with the United States is not shared values or common purpose. It's how much you're willing to invest in the Trump empire.